Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that military actions against Iran remain ongoing, with operations targeting the country's leadership and strategic infrastructure. The campaign has included strikes on key Iranian sites as part of broader security measures, according to statements from the Israeli government. Iran has responded with missile and drone attacks on Israel and neighbouring Gulf states, including regional tensions and affecting critical shipping lanes, such as the Strait of Hormuz. And now for more on this, I'm joined by our senior international correspondent and anchor, Afua Hagan. Afua, President Trump says U.S. objectives in Iran are pretty well complete, yet the conflict continues. So with the latest on ground, is the war actually winding down, or is it just entering a new phase?
I think what we're seeing is this war is actually entering a new phase. You know, overnight you did have a real barrage of strikes on Iran. People in Iran saying that they hit hard last night, that there's cracks in the walls of their houses. Sleeping has become the hardest thing. That's some quotes from some people inside Iran. The Israeli military announced new strikes into Iran and also hitting Lebanon. But yes, you did have him saying two different things yesterday. You had him saying that yes, the objectives were pretty well complete, but he also said that he threatened to bring death, fire and fury to Iran if it continues to block oil exports in the Strait of Hormuz. He actually said that on Truth Social yesterday. So I think what Trump probably means is that the main air campaign phase, so that bombing phase, is probably near its completion. But this is not over. What you're seeing happening with the Strait of Hormuz and it being almost virtually closed at the moment, and so no tankers of oil or any other goods can get through. And then, of course, you're seeing oil prices spike. So yesterday they got to about $120 a barrel before they settled around $90 a barrel. And that affects him at home, economically and domestically, because people are now seeing their gas prices go up. You know, it's happening the world over. It's happening where you are in Nigeria. It's happening where I am in London. It's happening in the United States. And that is bad for him at home. So perhaps he's thinking to himself, oh, this war, probably not a good idea for me as I come into the midterms. And that's what he's thinking when he's saying, our objectives have been met, this war is done.
So Trump has warned Iran that there will be death, fire and fury if oil supplies in the Gulf are disrupted. How dangerous is that kind of rhetoric in a conflict that's already involving multiple regional actors?
Well, that really pours fuel on the fire, doesn't it, already? If you are already had a bombing campaign phase in Iran and then promising death, fire and fury, that implies that there is worse to come. But I think what I talked about, the Strait of Hormuz and how important that is, not necessarily to the United States, because if they say they have the oil from Venezuela, they can get their supplies from there. But of course, it affects the rest of the world hugely and will affect Trump at home if domestically prices go up and people feel the pinch as they are already feeling. That affects his popularity going into the midterms. And so that rhetoric is dangerous. You know, you have actors all over the Middle East who have been drawn into this war. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, and then you have Iran-backed militias in Syria, Iraq and Lebanon. Israel, of course, which was the instigator alongside the United States. You've got NATO and European forces trying to protect the shipping lanes already. So yeah, that rhetoric, I think it does up the ante. You know, we've already seen the missile attacks that talked about drone strikes, Western military shooting down Iranian drones. That encourages more of that to protect this very crucial shipping lane. And like I said, not necessarily crucial to the United States, but crucial to everybody else around the world, and of course China also.
So if Trump says the war could end soon, but Iran says the opposite, what should the world be watching in the coming days to know which way this conflict is really happening? And I tell you, Afua, people are really worried, especially about the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major shipping site.
You're absolutely right to say that people are really very worried about what's happening there. And I think that's one of the biggest indicators as to what happens over the next few days what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. If tankers can move safely again through that route, it suggests that there's a stabilization in this crisis. But if the shipping lanes remain to be threatened, then the conflict escalates economically and militarily as well. It's also whether Iran escalates its missile and proxy attacks. So if you have more attacks by Hezbollah in Lebanon, by militias in Iraq, or by any other Iranian-backed forces, and then any signals from the new man in charge in Iran, Mojtaba Khomeini, what he decides he wants to do with the Revolutionary Guard, if there's an openness to negotiation or if there's a doubling down on their stance at the moment. I think we have to look for that as well.
All right, Afua Hagan there on the update on the Middle East crisis, and clearly there is a two-sided conversation. We don't know whether the war is wrapping up or it's just beginning, but definitely we're still on ground to give you all the updates.